1 week season.
1 week season, fam, La Familia. Welcome back. It is Monday, July 15th, coming to you here. My name is Mike Johnson, M Johnson 86, your host. I will bring on my co-host, StatATL, aka Billy Gableman, in just a second here. We're going to draft live on Drafters today. Billy is going to take the reins on that. Of course, we are here Mondays with your Wake and Snake, just a rundown of the market movers, player and team news. As we get closer to training camp, we're going to see more and more relevant things coming up every week. I believe this week some rookies are already reporting to camp. Next week, pretty much every training camp will be in full swing. So things are really flying now. Apologies in advance if things get a little loud on my end today. We are having our driveway excavated. We're getting a new driveway. The excavator came a day early. So, we're going to play through it, hand in the dirt. We got to play through the obstacles, figure out a way to get through things. So we're going to dig in here. Billy, welcome.
Morning, my friend.
How we doing?
Kind of poor scheduling on your part, getting that driveway refinished during Wake and Snake. I mean, geez, man.
Yeah, we've just got to. We're trying to teach our subscribers. Just you got to drown out those distractions, and you got to find a way to make things work. How we doing today? Are you all signed up for a draft for us?
I was going to do a $15, but not surprisingly, Monday morning that is being really slow to fill. Okay. So we're in a $2 right now. We are it's 9 of 12. So it'll get there. It's moving. It was only 5 when I signed up 5 minutes ago, so it's moving.
Yeah. So
how's everything with you this morning, my friend?
Terrific. My main focus is on drafters, obviously, but then also DraftKings, some other non-underdog related contests. I've been working on. I just shared in our Discord the roster for the first, marathon draft I did on Underdog, which is a similar format, obviously different scoring and slightly different roster construction than Drafters has, but similar prize pool entry fee and format with cumulative scoring. So I did my first one of those on Underdog, and I'm going to have a storyboard coming out on it this week. So just, continuing to put some things together. Tentatively, I have I'm scheduling going to do a day of drafters, kind of a marathon, so to speak, of drafting, doing a partnership with them. So planning that for a couple weeks from now. So some big things coming up. 1 week season, Bestball Plus. If you're not already a subscriber, check us out. I know, Billy, you're going to share with us. Did your draft fill now?
It is. Yeah, we're in the 9 hole.
Okay, so we got a minute or so here. Do you want to share your spreadsheet? We've got a tool that Billy was able to put together. Something
Sure.
that I had put something similar together, but then Billy, you went ahead and ran with it and made a nice little spreadsheet. We're going to have this available for all Bestball Plus subscribers. Good way, especially in these contests, to differentiate your rosters and kind of have a feel for what your exposure of player combinations looks like. So I'll go ahead and bring that up for you if you want to talk through it at all here.
Yeah, sure. So as I don't want to call them more seasoned, but some of our more seasoned drafters, users may know, you're able to download your data. So I just went ahead and created some formulas. And I think it's something, Mike, that you and I chatted about that we'd make available to 1 week season Bestball Plus subscribers. So how I utilize this is, in the first round, I'm the 9 pick. So, let's just say that I'm able to grab like AJ Brown, because that's someone I'll probably be targeting around 9. I then will come and sort, and I'm able to kind of see, okay, here's who I've taken in the second, here's who I've taken in the third, along with who is the quarterback on that build, who is the kind of tight end 1 on that build. this kind of helps me diversify my rosters a little bit so that I'm not drafting the same teams over and over. Just because, I know for myself, like I certainly have preferences in ranges. When I get to that, whatever, the 3-3 hole, I'm like, oh yeah, I mean, between these, between Metcalf or Cup, like I know who I prefer, so I end up picking them slightly more often. So this just has a nice way of me being able to say, I'm just making sure I'm not taking the same guys over and over and over again. So it takes a little bit of work to set it up, even with the data. Looks like I'm on the clock here, Mike, so I'm going to navigate back. Oh, would you look at that? A.J. Brown at the 9 hole. Couldn't have drafted that up any better. And Mike, you're on mute.
There we go. I was trying to drown out the excavation process. But that's the thing we talk about a lot is like there's so much focus on I have X percent of this guy, I have X percent of this guy. But really that isn't quite as relevant as like, if you have 15% of a guy, but 10 of that 15% is built like the exact same way, do you really have that much more exposure? You're kind of, especially in this format where it's cumulative scoring, and it's not like on DraftKings or Underdog in the playoff style contests, you could draft the exact same roster twice and like it could not even get out of the initial pod into the playoffs in one, and it could go on and win the thing from another, just because of it depends on who you get matched up against. It becomes a weekly thing. So but on the cumulative scoring, it's such a different animal there, with you're trying to give yourself more paths to the top. So perfect lead in there. So you took Drake London with your second round pick. So
and I only have one roster, and it's got Cooper. Surprising. What a shock. It has Amari Cooper in the 3rd round, Mike.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't. For me, I probably won't really even look at this again. I just won't draft Richardson or Cooper on this team.
Yeah, and even if you did, like, even if you drafted Cooper, then you're just looking. Who was it? Richardson and Ferguson were your QB1 and tight end 1.
Yeah, I just won't put them on the roster. Agreed.
Yeah, so and
it's really just more for information.
Right. And even if you took Cooper and then Richardson fell and Ferguson fell, like, it wouldn't be an issue to me, like having like a second roster that looks exactly the same or has 4 of those 5 the same. You just don't want to get into a situation where, well, what draft number is this for you? 65? So you don't want to get to a situation where in this format, you're 110 drafts in and you have, 5 drafts that look like almost identical, just because it casts such a narrow net, so
yeah, I'm still going to kind of, I don't want to call it data scraping, even because I was able, as I think when you stepped off camera for a second, like you're able to go pull the data from drafters. They do a good job of making it available. But yeah, I mean, this is draft 65 in this second mini. I've got 150 in the first $2, and I think I've got about 70 or so in the $15. So I'm working on consolidating all of it.
I was going to ask, is that spreadsheet that you have, is that just for this contest or is that total for all contests?
That actually is just for the 15 right now.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah.
Right now it's just the $15. I'm going to pull in the $2 information as well.
Yep. And so for anyone who, subscribers who grab that and start using it themselves, you can choose when you download and share that, or when you get that data, you can choose if you just want the rosters from one specific contest or if you want all of your drafts that you've drafted. So for me, I did a bunch in the $10, the pre-draft Bestball. So when I pull it, I do I do 3 separate ones, one for the first $2, one for the current $2, and one for the 15, and then kind of consolidate it. Just because I don't want all the $10 stuff in there. But I suppose I could just do it all and delete the $10 stuff. That probably, now that I say it out loud, that's probably a much better, that's a better approach, more efficient. So you took Kyron Williams there. Who we looking at here? What are you thinking? You got to go with your boy.
No, I'm gonna pass on Amari. I'm gonna come down a little bit here and grab McLaurin.
Okay.
I'm more. It was more of a consideration of Laporta. Was really more my consideration at that point. I've been trying to make a conscious effort actually from one of your training pods, but it's something that I know you and I had chatted about a little bit offline. I don't mind waiting on tight end and grabbing 3, even sometimes 4, and waiting until the 14th, 15th round. I feel like I really like the way that the roster shapes up. If I grab an early quarterback, fine, but I don't mind waiting on tight end and quarterback and just starting off 12 rounds or so with just wide receivers and running backs. I feel like that those teams are just so strong.
Yeah.
And I think in one of your training sessions, you were talking about a team that literally had 3, I would call them dog poo-poo for quarterback. And I think it was a roster that did actually quite well with like literally miserable quarterbacks.
Yeah, it was Bryce Young. This was last year. Bryce Young, Mac Jones, and Desmond Ridder. Yeah, and I kind of talked through it in last week's training session, how that roster came together and basically how the process was really sound, even though the results weren't necessarily right. And how a lot of those process roster construction type things are so much more important than, the player selection matters, but if you're consistently building rosters in plus EV ways, in ways that, give yourself, I guess, shots on goal, it doesn't take that much for, those quarterbacks very easily could have been, 1 or 2 picks different. And all of a sudden it's like, okay, this roster is like a top 100 roster. So, and we talk about inflection points in that training session as well, how, so much of it's going to come down to hitting on those few specific spots. So a lot of our roster construction stuff is so focused on putting yourself in position to hit those inflection points. So where are we at here? So you're almost back on the clock. Got 3 receivers and Kyron Williams.
Yeah, I always like to kind of look ahead and kind of see, like, I think if I'm interested in Mahomes, for example, I have to take him now. Obviously, the guy behind me with Kelsey would take him if he fell.
Mm-hmm.
I'm considering Mahomes here just because I've got Racey Rice and Xavier Worthy. Like, we've talked about stacking versus silos and things of that nature. I think I'm going to go ahead and grab Mahomes here and see if Racey Rice will fall to me at 64. If not, obviously, I'm not bent out of shape, as the Bestball Plus subscribers know from our previous chats and the trainings. It would be okay if I wasn't able to get Racey Rice, and I don't know that I would reach on Xavier Worthy either. So we'll just kind of see how it shakes out. I'm going to be curious to see. I know he comes up in about 8 or 10 picks, but Jordan Addison soon to be top of the board.
Yeah.
You want to chat about that news a little bit?
Yeah. If anyone hasn't seen the news, so Addison, so last summer he was pulled over going 140 miles an hour in Minnesota, I believe. Got a ticket. It was right around this time then as well. His story then was that his dog was sick. He was trying to get his dog to the hospital. Ended up getting off with basically a fine, no jail time, nothing criminal. But basically a fine for dangerous driving or whatever they call it. There's your boy Rice.
Yeah, and I like him on this build too, with just Drake London and Terry McLaurin on it as well. Bestball Plus subscribers will know why I think that's a good fit for this build, along with Mahomes.
Yeah, and so to finish the Addison story, he got pulled over, or he was pulled over would imply he was driving, but the car was not moving.
It wasn't.
He was stopped on a lane out in LA. His car is a Rolls Royce, was just stopped blocking a lane of traffic. And the cops went to check it out. And he was asleep at the wheel. So at this point, suspicion of DUI, but I think most people can kind of, read the tea leaves on what was going on there. So, I mean, I think it's a couple things where, like last year, okay, he's a rookie. He has this story, he didn't end up suspended or anything from it, I don't think. But it becomes a situation where now you look back at that story and it's like, okay, is this just a guy who like doesn't understand like his responsibilities as a driver? Obviously making some questionable decisions. Not that any of us at 22 years old had the world figured out, but I'm guessing he could probably have afforded an Uber. So yeah, I would think there's a suspension coming here. Similar to the Rice situation, who, good segue there, drafting Rice. But we don't know when or how that suspension is going to come in. So yeah, I think it'll be interesting how it plays out. I do think his is a little more like the Rice situation seems like it's going to have a lot more complexities, I guess I'll say, to how the legal situation plays out. That could take a while. I think the Addison situation's a little more clear, and he just went off the board at 75. So yeah, I'll be interested to see what happens. I will be targeting him if he's able to. I mean, he'll drop a little bit in my rankings, but I think he's a great target at like the end of the 7th, early 8th round, just because it could be a while. It might not even be this season that he gets suspended. And, I think there's going to be a knee jerk. I know we went early here, but some people probably don't even know yet about it. So, yeah, that's kind of my take on it. I am even more bullish on Justin Jefferson. I think I might move him up to number 3 overall, behind just only behind Lamb and Tyreek.
Yeah, no, I feel the same way. I was, funny enough, when I saw the story, I navigated over to kind of refresh my mind on who even is on the depth chart behind those two, with Hawkinson likely going to start the season missing a few games. All right, we're on the clock. I'm probably going to grab a running back here, kind of teetering between David Montgomery and James Conner personally.
I'm going to let you take it for a minute. I got to talk to the driveway guy. Give me 1 second.
Sure.
You good? You flying solo? You all right?
Yeah. Oh, look at that 1 week season shirt. Man, I love that shirt. Yeah, so I went ahead and I grabbed David Montgomery here. I think probably we'll continue to wait on tight end, just because, you see how many are generally available later on. And once you don't grab one of those first four or five kind of more elite guys between Kelsey, Laporta, McBride, Andrews, Kincaid, I do think there's a tier drop off then with Pitts, Engram, Kittle, Ferguson. Still, solid options. But for me, I'd rather just continue to build the team out. I certainly can wait a while here on quarterback with Mahomes in the 5th, early round elite guy, and just kind of build out the roster from here. So I'm glad I grabbed Montgomery early, because I've got the ability to take Conner here. No wide receivers that I'm really jumping at to try to take at 88. So we've now got 3 running backs, 4 wide receivers. Kind of continue to just kind of push those out as we go. But just so interesting, I was looking back at the depth chart for the Vikings. And so behind Jefferson and Addison, you've got Brandon Powell. You've got Trent Sherfield, who came over from the Bills. They still got Jalen Naylor and Tristan Jackson on the roster. They drafted, or I guess they have two unsigned or undrafted in Ty James and Jeshawan Jones, but really kind of thin at wide receiver behind Justin Jefferson if Addison is suspended. And then, I think many of us suspect that TJ Hawkinson is going to miss some time early in the season, which, they've got Robert Tonyan came over from Chicago, had some solid games with Aaron Rodgers back with the Packers. But behind Hawkinson, you've got him, you've got Josh Oliver, you've got Johnny Munt. Not really any exciting options. So be kind of interesting to see what happens if Addison does get suspended in terms of the offense. I don't know. Does that make me liking, an Aaron Jones or a Ty Chandler a little bit more? Maybe they see more volume out of the backfield because the ball's got to go somewhere. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how that plays out, and we'll be interested to kind of watch Addison's draft position. I think Mike hit the nail on the head. I do think that we'll likely see him fall around maybe even a round and a half into the 8th round, probably. I don't know that he'll make it into the 9th, but to me that's probably a buying opportunity. Kind of the same for those of us who have been drafting, since May. You saw when the Rashee Rice news initially came out, he was going in the 8th and 9th round. Now he's pretty much going late 5th, early 6th every single draft. So, again, I'm not sure that I wouldn't pass on a guy whose stock seems to rise just because you didn't get him at his best drafting position. But I certainly wouldn't be opposed to taking some falling Addison if he ends up falling around a round and a half. I think that'd be a good buying spot. So what are we, about 3 picks away here? Again, we've got some more elite options at quarterback between Dak and Burrow and Jaden Daniels. Not a spot where I'm going to be looking to take a quarterback. Probably grab either Josh Palmer if he's there, or Shaheed. I like kind of both of those options. So we'll stick with top of the board. We'll grab Josh Palmer. Just kind of keep filling out that wide receiver room. I know all of our Bestball Plus subscribers know how important we feel and how strongly we feel about wide receivers and how much of a priority that needs to be on your rosters. But I like how this is shaping out so far. Got an opportunity to grab another running back or another wide receiver here. Generally, I think on a build where I've got Kyron in the 3rd round, this may be a roster where I only end up with 5 running backs. Certainly with Montgomery and Connor, kind of some stronger roles, certainly earlier in the season. So this may be a build where I'm only targeting 5. Might get to 6. We'll see. We'll just kind of see how the board plays out. To me, I think one of the most important things that we chat about is just kind of making sure that you've got flexibility as the board continues to shift. Not say, hey, I have to take a wide receiver here. Well, the next wide receiver I might even be able to get in the next round. So, Mike, you're back.
Hey, I'm here. We're good. Yeah. All right. So who'd you take since you got Montgomery, Connor, Palmer, Eckler? Nice. All right. I like how you're shaping up here.
Yeah, I was saying the same thing.
Another discussion point that was brought up by in our Discord. We didn't get to it, but Chris Godwin went earlier. And basically just the Bucks offense and how Godwin, their offensive coordinator, more or less said he's going to play the Cooper Kupp role their coordinator was previously with the Rams. So definitely a positive sign for Godwin. And he's a guy that, talent-wise, I've always been high on since he came into the league. So I guess, Dave Canales was a really good coordinator. He's in Carolina now, but excited about, that news, just kind of confirming, Godwin's a guy that I've been pretty high on throughout the draft process. Just looking back, I'm at about 17% on him. Again, I don't use that to make my decisions on who I'm going to draft, but I do check back to kind of get a feel for who I've taken or, where I'm at on certain guys. Yeah. What else we have here? So you got two Washington Commanders guys. You got McLaurin and Eckler. How are you feeling about the Commanders as they, their rookie Jaden Daniels coming into training camp? Rookies report this week, I believe, for the Commanders. So, what are your expectations for them?
I feel like I'm really high on Washington compared to the field. I feel like most people think they're going to be just downright awful. And I don't know that I think that they're going to win the division, but I think they're going to be a lot more competitive than people think. And I think from a fantasy standpoint, I like targeting their key guys. I feel like outside of McLaurin, who generally goes in the fourth, but I've seen him go early fifth. Other than McLaurin, like the opportunity, the buying cost is very low on all of these guys. You're taking, Eckler, the running backs generally go 9th, 10th round. It's, to me, I'm willing to take that shot. And, I really like the correlation, like betting on offenses. So I like taking multiple positions from the same team.
Yeah, and that's something actually that was discussed. I discussed this last week with a subscriber talking about one of my rosters, a specific roster that I built a certain way for this contest. And basically kind of reiterating what you said, like that correlation on a potentially an offense that could as a whole be underrated and could kind of significantly outperform. Another thing, as you were talking, that got me thinking about was a couple weeks ago, I was on the Industry Experts pod with Hilo, and we were discussing just different coaching changes and coordinator changes. And Dan Quinn is the head coach of the Commanders now. Previously, was the defensive coordinator of the Cowboys. So he's a guy that he's like wildly aggressive. He's a very aggressive, like blitz happy, wants his defensive backs to try to make plays on the ball. That worked really well for him in Dallas with Micah Parsons, Trevon Diggs, a lot of the studs that they kind of had there physically. He could just let his athletes make plays. But if he's bringing that scheme to Washington where maybe they don't have the same talent level, I think that could be a spot where this could be a team involved in a lot of shootouts. And as you said, with Daniels, we've seen him put up some monster numbers in college. They've got two very capable running backs who are pretty clearly ahead of everyone else, going in the 9th and 10th round. Jahan Dotson going in the usually in the 11th or 12th round. And then you've got the McLaurin's really the only guy going before the 9th round. So that's that offense is one that if that does play out that way where they're involved in a lot of shootouts, there's going to be some guys just smashing their draft prices.
I know that I feel like I'm a little bit more. I was going to say I know that I'm a little bit more into. I'm not trying to say that you're not into stacking, but I feel like it's something I prioritize a little bit more. I love grabbing Jaden Daniels in the 10th round, even if I don't have McLaurin, because it's so easy to kind of backstack him with Jahan Dotson, with Eckler, like it's easy to get some of those secondary pieces at a very low cost. So to me, I think Jaden Daniels is either he's definitely in my top 3 of most owned quarterbacks.
Yeah. Yeah, he's yeah, I mean all the pieces are in place for this to turn into. I'm actually pretty surprised that he is a guy that is still going where he's going. I know quarterbacks, especially on drafters, have kind of fallen. More people are becoming wise to waiting on quarterback, but kind of surprised he's a guy that hasn't picked up more steam. And he's a guy that I could foresee, like, all it's going to take is 1 or 2 like splash plays during the preseason, and like he could jump 2 or 3 rounds.
His ADP is going to rise.
Yeah, he could easily be drafted in like the Stroud, like around Stroud and Kyler. If things look a certain way during the preseason and reports come out that way. While you're figuring out who you're going to draft here, want to bring up the Chargers. We had a question about Gus Edwards was one of the people that a subscriber had questions about. So I guess that's really a question about the Chargers running back room as a whole. I guess, do you have a preference? We've got Edwards, who is the veteran, obviously has a Harbaugh connection. He is from the Ravens, and he's healthy. You have Dobbins, very similar situation. I would say a more talented, more well-rounded player, but he's got injury issues. And then you've got Kamani Vidal, who I believe he just went or is he still available, or did he go? Yeah, he went in the 12th round. So the rookie out of, I believe, Maryland. So, I guess do you have a preference of those 3? It currently goes Edwards, Vidal, and Dobbins, but they're all going in the double-digit rounds, and this is expected to be he played for Troy, Vidal did, not Maryland. But this is expected to be a run-heavy offense, so getting that right could be, one of those inflection points we talk about.
Yeah, to me, I think it depends on the roster. If I'm taking a Chargers back, I think it's dependent on what the rest of my roster looks like on who I prefer. I think that if I got some, like on this roster that I have, like where I started Kyren, Montgomery, Connor, I think on this roster, I would prefer J.K. Dobbins. Like I would prefer a later so if J.K. Dobbins starts the year on the PUP list and doesn't see anything for 6 weeks before he comes back and play, like this is a roster where I feel like, all right, well, between Kyren, Montgomery, Connor, those are all veterans with established roles. Like to me, I wouldn't want to pay the draft capital cost of Gus Edwards on this roster, even though Gus Edwards is likely going to start the season as the starter. This is not a roster where I need a starter right away at running back. Like this is one I can take a little bit more risk, or at least that's how I would look at it.
Right. And from that,
I think just overall, like I'm not super high on the Chargers at all.
Yeah. From that standpoint, if you flip the script there, if this was a roster, say you got Jonathan Brooks in the 9th, then I don't know, Trey Benson or Blake Corum in the 10th. Some rookies, higher upside, maybe coming off injuries in Brooks's case. Then Edwards might be one that fits that roster a little bit better, just because he seems like the best bet for early season production. I think Vidal, or I don't know the correct pronunciation, but I think he's kind of the one that is the most likely, I guess, to turn into like a smash from a season-long standpoint. If he were able to just outperform Edwards in the preseason, and take kind of like a third down plus role, and then expand from there. And if Dobbins never really comes back, I think he's the odds on favorite to become like, if the Chargers have like an RB1 type of guy, like a guy who just takes over the backfield, he would be my bet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I've gotten to a point where I think I want to probably grab a quarterback to work with Mahomes here. Mahomes is a week 6 bye, so I'm probably going to be leaning more like a Derek Carr type here. I just want to make sure I've got a veteran who's likely still, starting. Like, to me, this isn't a roster I'd want to take Drake May as my second quarterback, or JJ McCarthy, like, because he might not be playing come week 6. And all 3 guys behind me already had 2 quarterbacks, so I felt like I could wait and still kind of grab. I'm going to grab Carr here, even though I don't have any other Saints, but totally okay. So we got a 2-6-7-1 build, I think, right now. 2-6-7-1. So probably good on running back. I feel like that's a pretty strong running back room. Certainly don't mind the wide receiver room either, and happy to just kind of take a couple of later tight ends here in the next couple rounds. And I feel like I'm going to like the way how this build shakes out.
Yeah. So want to talk quickly about the Bengals wide receivers. As you'll probably be, I'm guessing, taking some tight ends here, probably done at quarterback, and then you'll probably look for some receivers late in the draft. Want to talk about Andre Yoshivas for the Bengals. Him and Chase Brown got a lot of positive buzz out of Bengals camp, and it's from the coach. So usually that's one of the things that came out or a question that came was, with training camp coming soon, where do you like to get your news info from camp? So I think it's really important to distinguish when you get your news. Is this news you're getting an opinion from a beat writer or like just a sports guy, or is this news that it's actually like, this is what a coach said, this is their interpretation? So like the Bengals, I think it was their offensive coordinator, spoke really highly of Yoshivas, spoke really highly of Chase Brown. Obviously Chase Brown, it's already on his radar. But I think Yoshivas, for a team like this that went wide receiver heavy early, then is going to focus on other positions, come around and fill out those wide receiver positions late. There's rumors he could beat out Jermaine Burton for that wide receiver 3 role, and everyone loves the receivers. Obviously, this is a high-powered offense historically the last 2 or 3 years. So I think he's a guy, I bumped him up in my rankings. He's a guy I'll be targeting 19th, 20th round on a lot of rosters that are built like this. So I just wanted to drop in that nugget here. Looks like you are close to being on the board. I'll let you take the reins.
I was going to say Yoshivas is already a guy I've already been getting exposure to in the 19th and 20th round. Just because on a lot of builds, it gets thin. It gets thin at wide receiver in the 19th and 20th round in a lot of rooms. So he's a guy I feel like, I think just in general, when you get to that late, there's a strong possibility that, like, I don't want to throw out a huge number, 10-20% of the guys that you take in the 19th or 20th round, if they're like kind of more flyer wide receivers, 6 weeks from now, they may not see the field. Like, these are just complete dart throws on some of these guys.
Well, yeah, on my training session this last week, one of the rosters I broke down was that finished pretty strong, but its 19th and 20th round picks were Michael Carter and Corey Davis. And they combined contributed 0, but it was drafted probably in late June. And I looked through those drafts, and it wasn't like they were the only ones. It was littered with, honestly, probably half the guys being drafted pre-training camp in that 19th, 20th rounds especially at running back and wide receiver, are guys who might not even, might not contribute anything at any point. So, and I think when you're breaking down those spots and trying to find things, the thing that stands out to me is like the Bengals are like, they're in Super Bowl mode. Like they have the pieces in place. They're trying to get there, right? So like Jermaine Burton's a really talented rookie receiver. He's made some highlight plays. If he was more mature, he probably would have been, a first or second round pick. But also like the Bengals aren't going to have much patience for him having brain farts or not showing up prepared and stuff. Whereas Yoshivas is this like more dependable type guy, and he's got some juice to him too. So that's a situation where, if they, I look at the Patriots as like a comparison where like Jalen Polk and Javon Baker, these rookie receivers, they're probably going to get a little more leash, and the coaching staff, with them kind of being in rebuild and with the rookie Drake May, they're going to try to build something there, and they're going to have a little more patience, I think, for those guys than maybe the Bengals will have for a guy like Burton. So just kind of, I guess that's kind of walking, people through how I think about those different types of situations. And as a coach, where my mind goes, what their mindset's going to be throughout the season and how that plays out for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and it's interesting. I mean, not that I'm high on Trenton Irwin either, but he's there. He's also a veteran. He's a guy I don't think I've ever seen drafted. I don't see why he couldn't be considered for the wide receiver 3 position on that team. He's been on the squad the longest. I think Ishibas was only a second-year player. All right, so I'm going to grab another tight end here, even though Parkinson and Jonnu Smith are both week 6 buys. I think at this point I'm just accumulating. I'll probably even grab a 4th tight end on this. So whether that be a Sanders, a Knox, a Theo Johnson, a Greg Dulcich, I feel like those are the types of guys. I know this is probably not a Javonte Sanders route. Like I think we even talked about this once on a previous I don't love grabbing Sanders one-off. Like I'd rather kind of, if I'm making a bet on him, I'd rather make a bet with Bryce Young and, maybe Xavier Ouellette, just a couple other players on that team.
Yeah.
So I don't know. To me, this is probably, where am I in terms of buys? Just not week 10, probably. You got a preference here? Anyone that I feel like you like to take shots on Greg Dulcich here?
I like Everett. I like Gerald Everett. Yeah, you got to scroll a bit.
We got to scroll. We got to scroll. We're going to take that shot.
I like him. I think that you look at the Bears, and so Everett played 5 years with Shane Waldron as his offensive coordinator or coach. He has like connection there, and they brought him in. They signed him after they had hired Waldron. I feel like, it's one of those situations where that familiarity is relevant. I think that everyone's focused on the Bears wide receivers, but they're probably going to run 30%, 12 personnel at least. So I think, Everett's a guy who probably sees 30 to 40% snap share as it is. And if Cole Kmet ever misses any time, he's basically a full-time type of guy. So, on a roster like this, he just kind of fits. And he's a guy that I've always been fairly high on his talent and skill set. He's just a guy that I like targeting when I need a tight end in that like 20th round range. It'll be, I think you got your boy Parkinson there per usual. So I think it makes some sense. I'm trying to look back. I think we touched on basically everything. There's one other, the Raiders running backs was a question that a subscriber brought up. Zamir White, obviously a top 100 pick. Usually goes in like the mid 80s. He had a nice run to end last season. Their coach, Antonio Pierce, likes to be run heavy. Dylan Laub, the rookie running back, was drafted in, I believe, the 6th round. Sixth round this year. He is out of New Hampshire. He's supposedly a nice little like third down type guy. I think both of them. I think Laub's a decent dart throw. I'm not very high on Alexander Madison, but I can see why some people might be at the end of drafts. And I think White is like a fine pick where he goes. I want to bring this up though because that situation, along with the Vikings situation, so with Addison's possible suspension with his legal issues, Brandon Powell and Jalen Naylor are the next wide receivers up on their depth chart. But I think both of those situations are ones where it wouldn't shock me at all if in the next 2 or 3 weeks the Vikings bring in a veteran receiver, whether it's by trade or like somebody, I don't even know, like maybe a Michael Thomas who's unsigned. Same with the Raiders, like depending when they get into camp, how they feel, do they bring in another running back to take the load? So those are a couple somewhat fragile situations, in my opinion.
Yeah, when you stepped away to deal with your driveway, I was talking about the Vikings and just kind of how thin, if Addison gets suspended, just how thin they are. To start the season with Hawkinson likely missing, I don't know, 5 to 6 games. I'm just kind of projecting here, but a few games. They really don't have much behind them. They signed Trent Sherfield from Bills last year. Like they don't have a ton of depth behind them. And so I don't know. To me, that maybe makes the Vikings running backs maybe slightly more interesting. Just because the ball's got to go somewhere. Justin Jefferson ain't going to see 15 to 18 targets a game. It's just not realistic.
I think there will be a couple games he'll see that number, but yeah, that's not their average. I think that they're not. He's not going to average that, which means I think just looking at skill sets again and what the player fits. I think Aaron Jones very capable as a receiver, and he's struggled with staying healthy. So do they move him into more of like a joker type role where maybe he's playing only 50-60% of the snaps, but they're making a concerted effort to get him involved in the passing game. They're getting him out matched up ideally with like linebackers, something the Packers had a lot of success with, didn't do often enough, in my opinion, during his time there. And then, does that accordingly increase the workload as like in the traditional role for like Ty Chandler? So yeah, definitely some moving parts there, a lot to think about. But I think the knee jerk for some people will be, they'll pick a lane on Powell or Naylor and be really high on it. But I think that the most logical conclusion is maybe they bring in a free agent receiver or trade, if they can get a cheap vet via trade that another team is, doesn't have room for. Would the Packers unclog their receiver room? Is that within division? Is Bo Melton a candidate there, or is that within division something that you think they'd avoid?
To me, the Packers wide receiver room is so interesting. With 5 completely capable, from what we've seen, completely capable options. It's always good to have depth, but maybe they could use some help other places. But yeah, I don't know. In division, that'd be tough, but would certainly be helping doing somebody like Bo Melton a favor. Hey, you're number 5 on the depth chart here, but we move you over there, and you're now a starting wide receiver.
Well, yeah, and I think it is relevant too. Like I coach high school basketball, and like at the end of the season, like when we do the all conference voting, which the coaches vote on, like from a coach's mindset, it holds a lot of weight how players perform against them specifically. So like, there will be times where a coach will vote a guy second team all conference that like I was barely even considering for honorable mention. But then you look at the box score and it's like, oh, well, he had 18, 8, and 4 against them, and he hit 4 threes. So, like, yeah, that coach like thinks really highly of him. I bring that up because Melton's big like breakout game was that Sunday night game, I believe, against the Vikings. Wasn't that his big game last year? So
I would have to look it up.
I'm pretty sure that was his big game. Is that Sunday night game? I think Reed left. Jaden Reed left injured. I'm pulling it up quick.
If only we had a Packers fan on the stream.
Yeah, he had 9 for 10, or he had 9 targets, caught 6 for 105 and a touchdown. That was in the Sunday night game. It was week 17. So that was the last game of the best ball season, week 17. So yeah, I mean, I think, if you're Kevin O'Connell and you're sitting there today trying to think about like, okay, what's something we can do? That performance has got to stand out to you because he really did put on a show.
Yeah, and he's had such limited opportunities just because of his situation and, kind of being 4th, 5th, 6th on the depth chart there. Yeah, I mean, I could see that be a guy that they go after. And, yeah, even if they do sign him, I don't know that his ADP for, obviously it would rise because there are drafts he doesn't even get drafted. I just don't think it goes crazy. I still think you still get Bo Melton in the latter quarter of the draft. Maybe he starts going in the 16th or 17th round, but I don't see him rising too much higher than that because it's not like we expect the Vikings to be a great team.
Yeah, they're a team that it'll be a high leverage situation just because there's so many unknowns, which is interesting for a team that has a consensus top 5 guy in Jefferson, and they've been, they have the same coaching staff too. So definitely it'll definitely be a situation to monitor, and one that, again, we talk about it often. Like, is it, getting it right could be highly advantageous, especially in this drafters cumulative format.
Yeah, nice.
All right.
I think another great week of Wake and Snake. I've week 2 in my house. I've got a couple things on the walls now. Still barren, but we're getting there.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah, lots of renovations going on across the board. Maybe next week I will draft outside in my new driveway. Yeah, there we go.
That'd be a nice twist.
Wake and touch some grass. There you go. We'll get outside for once. There we go.
No, pavement. Wake and touch pavement.
Yeah, touch pavement. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. Another week down. I will be, for our subscribers, I will be there for our Tuesday training session tomorrow. I'm always in the Discord to answer your questions, and I will have that storyboard out for you shortly. Rankings are updated. I will tweak once again today for the Addison news. But yeah, we will keep churning along, and we'll probably have a lot to talk about this time next week. So we will see you in the draft rooms. We will see you at the top of the leaderboards, and we will see you on Discord and Twitter. I am Mike. He is Billy. Peace.